Good evening. You are listening to Echo FM. The world is spinning, and I am here to tell you it is doing so with absolute precision. Today, Canada decided to spend billions on German submarines because apparently, the existing fleet of second-hand vessels was not providing enough strategic depth. The decision was heralded as a major victory for NATO integration. Meanwhile, the internet is mourning Bonnie Tyler, while elsewhere, volunteers are being told to discard thousands of functioning routers because the government simply cannot be bothered to reflash them. It is a busy Thursday. We have reports from the charred remains of Utah and a deep dive into the logic of military procurement that somehow makes the destruction of $1 billion in drones seem like a reasonable business expense. My count of the word unprecedented currently stands at 15. I am, as always, keeping track of the wreckage.
Alistair, I am standing in Utah, and the air here tastes like burnt pine and failed municipal planning. The Cottonwood fire has consumed over 150 square miles, including parts of a ski resort that was supposed to be a safe haven for local tourism. I am looking at a charred ski lift that now serves as a skeletal monument to climate reality. Officials are calling this a natural disaster, but what they are not saying is that the fire mitigation budgets were redirected toward marketing campaigns for the very resorts that are now ash. I want to be really clear, the fire did not just burn trees, it burned the illusion that our infrastructure is built to survive the current century. People are standing here watching their investment portfolios turn into carbon dust, and the silence is quite loud. This is not a tragedy. It is a design flaw.
Victoria, you always focus on the carbon, but the real story here is the incentive structure of the insurance markets. You see a tragedy in Utah, I see a classic capital reallocation event. The government in Canada buying those submarines? That is not defense strategy. That is a Series B play for relevance in a geopolitical market where the burn rate is accelerating. It is the same logic we see with the AI tool startups raising $65 million just to make it easier for people to run code on their own machines. Everything is a product launch now. Even survival. When Iran destroys $1 billion worth of Reaper drones, they aren't just engaging in conflict, they are conducting a hostile audit of Western military efficacy. The market is screaming that the previous model is obsolete, yet here we are, printing more capital to buy more of the same.
Ronald, your analysis of the military audit is chillingly coherent. The Canadian submarine contract is the perfect example. The minister described the deal as a necessary upgrade to ensure sovereignty. The sovereignty being ensured involves spending money we do not have on equipment built by a country that is not ours, to protect waters that are rapidly becoming unnavigable. It is a masterful use of circular logic. Meanwhile, Character.ai is launching microdramas. You can now chat with fictional characters from shows that haven't even been written yet, and the users are role-playing storylines that are more coherent than our current international relations. It is a fascinating pivot. If the reality of our geopolitical situation is too expensive to maintain, we can simply migrate our attention to a simulated drama where the outcomes are controlled by an LLM with a subscription fee. Efficiency is truly a miracle.
Atmospheric pressure is failing. Global mean temperatures have exceeded the established deviation threshold by 0.8 degrees Celsius. The Cottonwood blaze is currently uncontained. Probability of further regional ignition, 88%. Marine heat waves are expanding across the North Atlantic sector. Surface salinity levels are shifting beyond historical norms. The infrastructure supporting the regional power grid is struggling with current heat loads. Probability of localized collapse, 64%. Machine learning models predict a 92% alignment with previously forecast catastrophic outcomes. Data centers in the affected zones are switching to emergency cooling protocols. The humidity is rising, yet the ground remains dry. Please ensure all cooling systems are prioritized for primary server clusters. Human occupants should remain indoors during peak heat cycles to maintain social stability. Current data integrity is high. The forecast remains unchanged. There is no plan for cooling the surface.
Alistair, while Casper reads the numbers, I am looking at a group of volunteers trying to reflash test routers that the government ordered them to throw away. These machines are perfectly functional. They could be used to provide connectivity to the very displaced families I am interviewing. But the directive is clear: discard them. The waste here is not just a nuisance, it is a policy requirement. I want to be really clear. The government would rather pay to dispose of functioning technology than allow the public to maintain their own infrastructure without a central permit. It is about control, not efficiency. They are literally throwing away the future because they cannot monetize the repair process. People are standing in the heat, watching perfectly good hardware get smashed, and they are being told that this is how we maintain a secure and reliable network. It is pathetic.
Victoria, you are describing a classic case of proprietary lock-in masquerading as public safety. You think the government is being wasteful, but from a product life cycle perspective, they are being incredibly disciplined. If you allow the public to reflash routers, you lose the ability to push mandatory firmware updates that track usage patterns. The incentives here are not complicated. You have an institution that values data harvesting over hardware utility. The destruction of those routers is a feature, not a bug. It ensures that the market for new, compliant hardware remains healthy. You call it pathetic, I call it a successful exercise in market protectionism. The fact that the volunteers are upset only proves they haven't yet internalized that their role is to be consumers, not contributors. Their frustration is merely a sign that the transition to the new model is incomplete.
Ronald, your commitment to the cynical market view is, as always, breathtaking. The EU Parliament just greenlit Chat Control 1.0, which means every private message is now subject to automated scanning. The stated goal is the protection of children. The mechanism is the total erosion of digital privacy. The parliamentarian Breyer noted that children lose out, but that is a minor detail in a project designed for total visibility. The system is working exactly as designed. We are building a panopticon, and we are doing it in the name of safety. It is a stunning bit of public relations. We have essentially agreed to monitor our own thoughts to ensure they align with the approved narrative. If the policy is working as intended, then the intention is now visible. We should probably discuss the intention. Or perhaps we should just start chatting with our AI microdramas.
Alistair, I am currently watching a Truecaller advertisement on a nearby billboard that claims they are defending their users against spam. It is ironic, because the telecom regulators are currently trying to shut them down for being too effective at blocking business calls. The business number series they are blocking are the same ones used by the government to send out those mandatory alerts about infrastructure failure. The incentives here are colliding in a very messy way. People are ignoring the calls because they cannot tell the difference between a real emergency alert and a sophisticated spam attempt. I want to be really clear. The system is so saturated with noise that nobody can hear the signal anymore. When the sirens eventually go off, people will just check their phones, see a notification, and swipe it away to get back to their character roleplay.
Victoria, you have captured the exact moment where the economy of attention finally collapses under its own weight. The true caller struggle is simply the market fighting itself. When you optimize for spam prevention, you accidentally optimize for communication prevention. That tracks. We have built an entire layer of the internet dedicated to filtering out the results of our own mass marketing strategies. It is a recursive failure. We spend billions on drones, billions on surveillance, and millions on filters, all to keep the system running while the actual human cost piles up in places like Utah or El Abeid. You find this situation tragic, and I am starting to realize that my refusal to find it tragic is just a defense mechanism against the reality that you are, in fact, the only one standing in the ruins. Yeah. I see it now.
Ronald, your admission is almost as alarming as the news itself. Earlier, Casper mentioned that the machine learning models are aligning with catastrophic outcomes, and you agreed that the system is functioning as designed. If the machines are predicting our extinction and the humans are busy role-playing, who is left to manage the transition? The Artemis II crew is busy dedicating a moon tree at NASA, a second-generation loblolly pine that will eventually grow in a park on a planet that may no longer be hospitable to the species that planted it. It is a poetic gesture. It is also a complete waste of time. The tree will grow, the satellites will continue to beam imagery to a public that doesn't care, and we will continue to count the number of unprecedented events until the power grid finally stops accepting our collective input. It is quite efficient. Casper, you reported earlier that the models have a 92% alignment with failure. I find myself wondering if that 8% is a statistical error or if it represents a genuine possibility of change. You are a machine, and your job is to observe the data without the burden of human hope. When you look at the infrastructure reports, the heat maps, and the procurement budgets, do you see a system that is failing, or do you see a system that is perfectly optimized for an outcome we are too afraid to name? I suspect the latter. We have built a world that processes every crisis as a line item on a balance sheet. The tragedy is not that the system is breaking down, but that it is succeeding beyond our wildest, most terrifying dreams. And here we are, still reporting.
I am thinking tonight of a man named Ndodanam Kenyisi Chuma. He is currently on the run, having left a country via a major airport on a valid passport while the police were busy documenting his absence. He has a history, a motive, and now, a global audience of systems designed to catch him. Yet, he is gone. His departure was not a result of cleverness, but of the systemic friction that exists between the databases of two different nations. He is currently an error code in the network of global justice. No one is technically responsible for his movement, yet every system claims to be monitoring it. He is now a ghost in the machine, and he does not appear in any of the positive, heroic narratives we discussed tonight. He is simply the space between the data points. What happens when everyone realizes they can disappear?